Hello and welcome to On to the Next Project. I'm Brian Miller.
And I'm Adam Krutinger.
And on this show, Adam and I have a weekly free form conversation about building a living and a life with your passion.
And this week's topic is intention, which is where we kind of left off at the end of the last chat we had.
Yeah, we did. I'm not sure how we got there. I never quite know how we get to where we end up, but but we did. We ended up on intention and intentionality, and I think the big question, and this isn't this isn't a small question. This is like if you go into philosophy of art, if you actually formally study aesthetics, philosophy of art, it's kind of like the question of that entire discipline, which is who determines art? Who determines what art is, right? If you decide you're going to hang up a toilet on the wall of an art gallery, is that art, right? If you're gonna you're in Buffalo still, I'm from Buffalo. The Albright Knox Art Gallery's got that one painting I always think of, which is a giant white canvas with just a red dot in the middle of it. That was always the one people would
Yeah.
use as the example of like,
If you
well,
want to use a more current example, that's that banana taped to the wall.
the banana, because I wrote a whole big long blog about that when that happened. Yeah. Um, yeah, the banana taped to the wall. Is it? Was it the intention from the artist? Is it because I said this is art? And
Yeah.
and more than that is does the artist get to decide when something is art? And second,
Where's it?
does the artist get to decide what
Yeah.
type of art it is or how you
Yeah.
interpret the
Well,
art?
let me go on this for a second, just because like I have, especially as an art teacher, I have probably what may be considered a kind of a unique perspective on this.
Yes.
That would be different than most other art teachers, is because like and again I didn't look too much into it. I just know about that story peripherally, but I personally I don't think I see that as art, even though I definitely understand and appreciate the arguments that it is, and they're not wrong. But I honestly see a move like that as the artist seeing how much they can get away with. Like, let's see, am I really this important, this popular? What if I just taped a banana to the wall? Would that work? I think it's almost them testing their own limits of where they are. And again, the art is, for the most part, my belief is the art, the artist's intention doesn't matter. It's more of how it's perceived by the audience. It's kind of my general philosophy on it, which is actually ties in good to what we're hopefully going to be talking about today.
Yeah, no, and I think you and I are in really close agreement, more so here than on other topics, which is I almost always come down on the side of the the audience, the receiver decides the value of something or how, and this is true in just interactions and conversations, the kind of connection stuff that I talk about. I say this all the time. I don't care if you intended that interaction you had to go a certain way. The person who's upset is right? If they're upset, if they're offended, they're right. And see, I knew you were going to push back on that. That's why I said that. So
It's just so anecdotal. The situation does matter, because I do think the intention is very, very important too. But if people's interpretation uh, sometimes can be wrong. I think it isn't generally wrong, but it can be wrong. It can be.
but isn't it your job to communicate what you intend in a clear way, right? Isn't that's kind of where I'm falling down on a lot of
Sure,
this
sure.
stuff
Yeah,
is.
but one thing I'll just say after that, right away, is that you know how someone else perceives that. It may be clear. You may have thought like, this is as clear. I worked on this statement for 2 months, and this is as clear as I can. I boiled it down to just the essence, and then some people still won't get it. Whose fault is that? Right? That's kind of, again, I think we're on the same page, and we're kind of in the weeds on it. It can, 'cause in the same way, you can't win over everybody on anything,
Yeah.
right? People just want to be mad. Some people want to just not like something for other reasons. They might like the message, but not the delivery person. Which is
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of that old it's kind of an offshoot. You know how there's that old saying like whether you think this is good or bad, you're right. It's kind of like that. Like whether the person likes your art or doesn't like your art, they're right.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right? Whether
Yeah.
they think your art is good, whether they think your art is bad, whether they think you're funny, whether they think you're offensive, they're
Yeah.
right.
They're right to them. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. So, and I
Yeah.
think here's where you get, so let's go back to the banana. I'd forgotten about that, even though I spent like a month of my life last year writing and talking about that example because I was using the example in all of my presentations last year. Thank you for reminding me. Such a good example. So, one of the reasons I love that example is that it really speaks to an earlier conversation you and I had, and I can't remember what episode it was, but we were talking about how you price things. Is that okay, so people bought the banana taped to the wall for $100,000, right? It was $120,000, whatever it was. Now, there's a lot of people that, I mean, the whole internet was just like, how could anybody pay for a banana taped to a wall? And I remember using that to explain how value comes from story and not from the thing itself. What people were paying $100,000 for was to be allowed to tell the story of how they bought that banana, right? Basically, what they were saying is for $100,000, when I go, I get this little certificate of authenticity from the guy, right? That he signed that says authentically. And it even says on the certificate, replace the banana whenever necessary. The banana wasn't the point. It was right there on the certificate. So whenever you want, you replace the banana with a fresh one and retape it to the wall. It's not his tape, it's not his banana. But in your house, when your friends come over, and if you can afford $100,000 on that, then you have friends that you are constantly trying to impress, right? That's the world you're in, and they're trying to impress you all the time. So next time your friends come over and they say, "What the hell is that?" and you go, "Let me tell you." And you tell them the story of that artist putting up that banana and how you were the first one in and bought it, and this is it. But that story, the look on your friend's face when they make this face as you tell them that story, that's what you paid for. And
Yeah.
so where does that fit into the intention of the artist is the question.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with all that, but I'd also add too, I'd put a little more on the artist too, that's all they're also buying a piece of you know, attachment to the artist in some way. As
Yeah.
well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
part of that legacy in some way. But again, I still, even in hearing that, I agree with all that, but I still think it's the artist trying to see how much they can get away with, which is fair. And a lot of artists do that. I mean, what's funny, I was just watching something else, someone talking about Team America, and how that puppet movie with by the people who did South Park, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So in that movie, what they did is they did such extreme stuff that they knew wouldn't be approved to be in the movie. Okay. So they took it further because they're not going to take everything out. So they just took the most extreme stuff. So they put other fake extra extreme stuff, to have it be taken out so they could keep everything that they actually wanted in there. So they're like, in the same way that I think that artist is trying to like, and here's the thing, I think they actually got away with more than they even expected to, because that movie's pretty outrageous, and it's amazing that it's the rating on it, uh, not necessarily the rating on it, that other movies that aren't near as extreme have the same rating.
Well,
So yeah, seeing how far they can get away with, and I think that's what that artist was doing as well.
so this is interesting though. So this gets we've been on this as kind of almost like a silly kind of kind of a silly version of this topic, but then you get to the question of, isn't that the job of an artist? Isn't the job of an artist to find out where the line is, right? Isn't that the role of a comedian in society to tell jokes until they cross the line, to find where is the line? Like, don't comedians and artists and people aren't they the ones that get to figure out what the pulse of society is right now? And there's this question. I know you and I are both big fans of Sam Harris. He's talked a lot about cancel culture, and I don't want to go too heavy into that for fear of being canceled. But
Yeah.
the
Didn't
but
we
the
touch on it last time a little bit too, I
we
think?
did a little bit, yeah. And I think the big question here is, in order to do art that's really worthwhile, don't you occasionally have to stick a banana to a wall to
Yeah.
find out if that fits within what people are willing to consider art?
Yeah. No, no, I again, I'm proud of myself that I don't get overly offended. I can look at something and be like, "Oh, that was a bad move, buddy. You're gonna get in trouble." But I don't hold it. I don't hold it. It doesn't generally change my opinion. I mean, obviously, there are extreme cases where they've turned out to be monsters and stuff, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a slip up or making clearly a wrong choice. But again, I do understand people's outrage to that, but I think it's just them, you know, loving being outraged about something because it's a choice whether how much you wanna obsess over something, right?
And maybe here's where the intentionality fits into this, which is, did you actually intend to offend people, or were you intending to do art and then people got offended, right? Were you intending to create something that somebody would enjoy? Because for everything that people are offended by, there are people who enjoy that. Like, there are a lot of people offended by, say, I don't know, Chris Rock, and would never go to him, but he is also beloved by millions of people. So, like, when he offends somebody, I think the where we fall on the side of is, did he intend to offend people, or did he just intend to do great art for the people who are not offended by him,
Or
right?
both, like intent isn't just one thing always. You have multiple goals in any, action you take. It's not gonna just affect one thing.
So, okay, so here's the question to make it a little bit more relevant, bring it back down from the kind of celebrity and like crazy artists that are putting bananas on walls and stuff. For the average person, you and me and content creators and people watching this, freelancers, entrepreneurs, you know, how much do you have to be careful these days
Mm,
with everything being online? This goes back to the authenticity. Everything's on the internet. There's no distinction anymore. How careful do you have to be about, yeah, you have the right to your intention, but you really do have to be careful that your intentions at least are very clear and upfront, right? How much do you have to worry about the way
yeah.
the audience might take it?
Yeah. No, and I think I can relate it to myself a little bit too, where I think in my way how I'm trying to accomplish that is just by putting out as much about myself as possible. Where if someone sees something that they are offended by, I mean, like there's such a library of work that would be
Yeah.
hopefully, contrasting to that idea that they must think it's just either a fluke or a misinterpretation of it. And I actually had that kind of an experience. I had a person that was in one of my groups about close to a year ago, who I guess what happened is someone messaged him and said that they were messaging him on my behalf. Which, first of all, if anyone ever does that, it's not true because I would just message them myself. And so this person associated that person with me, and then they sent me a message about how upset they were with me, and then they just like blocked me and everything, and I'm just like, what is going on? And it's like, and again, this person's been following me for had been following me for a while, and even like supporting our Patreon for the Puppeteers podcast and stuff. So it wasn't just like even a casual person. And I was just like, it was amazing. It really was truly amazing to me that how one thing that someone else said made put this idea into this person's head and made and dismissed all the value and positive connection that we had had personally in the past.
Mm. So, what can you do about that though, right? Because your intention, that this is what I kind of what I'm saying, right? Is that your intention didn't really matter at all in that situation. That was all the
Yeah.
interpretation. And does that mean you just kind of got to shrug and go, I can only do what I can do. I can't control what's outside of myself. I just,
Yeah. I mean, that's all I could do because literally they sent me a message, which was just kind of like a monologue, and at the end it said, "Do not even respond to this. I want nothing to do with you." I was like, "Oh my god!" I did anyway, but I've got had to. 'Cause, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, but like I don't know who this person is. I don't know. I mean, no one speaks for me. I speak for myself always. But this we actually I finally just reached out to him again. He must have unblocked me, but not reached out. So I saw his name pop up. And I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey, I'd love to talk," you
Mm,
know. And then we talked, and I explained. We really got to hear me, And then
yeah.
and I actually left it with him asking him at the end, saying like, this was the whole situation. What could I have done to not have to have prevented this, you know?
Um,
And then he at first he said too, he said, well, maybe if you reach out to me right away and ask if everything. I was like, I did,
yeah,
what we're doing right now, I offered immediately. And then
yeah,
he kind of conceded. He's like, you know what? I think I was just in a bad headspace at the time, you know?
yeah.
And
Well,
that's
that
something I have no control over.
right. Okay. So, and that is really where kind of this this topic about intentionality kind of comes to a close almost is that you can have the right intentions, you can not only have all the right intentions, or you can be aware of your intentions, you can convey your intentions, and you can be very aware of how your intentions might be taken, right? You can be very empathetic, and you can do perspective taking, all the things I talk about and teach, and you can really consider who this person is and how my audience is and how they might, given who they are, take what I'm saying and make sure that I'm going to say it in a way that will connect with who they are. But at the end of all of that, someone can still not like you, and they can still be offended by it, and that's something that's them. And you can still say they're right for them, but you don't have to let it change who you are, how you do your art next time.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I'm happy with how I handled the whole thing for the most part. I just but yeah, again, I
It's
guess what
wild.
I would just say is, like, you just have to not take things that seriously, even from this perspective. In the same way a lot of content creators say, like, don't look at the comments, don't read the comments. I do read them all, okay? But I take it all with a grain of salt, the positive and the negative, you know?
Well,
I don't
that's
read the positive stuff and feel like, "Oh, aren't I amazing?" Like, no, no, no. I take the positive stuff. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," but I could do better, right? I take the negative stuff as like, "Okay, this person's clearly having just a bad day and is taking it out at me, assuming I'm not reading it or something, or wants to get a rise out of other people in the comments." So again, I think just knowing that, and it's hard too, though, because like the guy said, he was in a bad headspace, and it happens to people. It does happen, but
yeah.
it's just trying to recognize that as early as you can is so important.
Yeah, and it's what you just said. I just recently on my Thursday Thoughts series did an episode about advice versus feedback, and it's exactly what you just said, which is as the difference between advice and feedback is not talked about much, and it's really important, right? People who genuinely care about your success, they offer advice, and it may not be something you want to hear, but if you know that the person that is, maybe you read a comment on your YouTube channel that is critical, saying something that could be better, but you recognize that username as somebody that for years has been positively contributing to your channel and your community, you ought to at least consider what they're suggesting, because that's a person who's not just trying to take you down. They're a part of your community. They want you to be successful, and they have an idea about something that would have been better or might be better next time. But feedback, which right in musical terms is that screeching horrendous noise that happens when a microphone sends its own signal back into the speakers, right?
Mm,
That's feedback.
yeah,
And that is what happens when we talk about haters. That's people who just are in a bad headspace, or they want, misery loves company. And those are the kind of people where if you respond to them, those are the kind of people honestly who say, I don't even want to hear from you, right? That's that.
yeah,
Feedback, they're not interested in a conversation, but people giving you advice,
yeah.
if you ask them to clarify or you wanna talk, they'll talk because they genuinely want you to be successful, and that is an important distinction.
No, no, and I also add one thing onto there too is because, like, unfortunately, we can't control. You can only control yourself. And one thing that I see that pops off of that is sometimes people say, "Well, sometimes I post something and I don't want any feedback at all. I just post it." And then people give feedback anyway, and then they get mad about it and say, "Well, I wasn't looking for any." I'm like, you know what though? Even though you don't want to, and people should respect your wishes, if you put something out into the world, people are going to react to it, and you asking them not to might make less of it happen, or it might essentially advertise to the kind of person that's trying to get a rise out of you anyway. And you just have to, if you put something into the world, you kind of have to be prepared for whatever the world throws back at you. That doesn't mean you have to take it to heart, but just
Right,
be prepared that it might actually happen, though.
right. You anytime you do something that is not just for you, right? Anytime you put something into the public sphere, you are starting a conversation. I mean, that really is what you're doing. You're starting a conversation, and you don't have to engage in that conversation. You can choose to walk into a room and go, "Hey, everybody, here's what I think," and then just keep walking, right?
And
You
then
can
run.
do that. And people think that that's what the internet is I'm allowed to just yell what I think and then move on. And you're right, you can. But people are allowed to yell back, and you have to decide if you're willing to listen to that or not, right? Like you said, you could ignore the comments, you could turn the comments off. But here's what happens when you become known as the kind of person who, and this is back to intentionality to wrap this up, right?
Yeah.
When you become known as the kind of person whose intentions is only to get for themselves, put a video up, put a blog up, and you have no interest in what anybody else thinks about it at all, you're not going to get people looking at your work.
Yeah.
You're at some point, people are just gonna go, "Okay, well, you can, put this out for yourself all you want, but if you're not interested in a conversation about it,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna look at it."
Yeah.
By the way, I love the specs. I love the
Oh, yeah.
glasses.
I was thinking about that. I thought it was so funny too because like we're talking about authenticity, and then now all of a sudden in the last, and then now in this episode, I'm like Clark Kent with glasses on. I was like, that's not Adam being his authentic self. I was like, guys, these are blue light glasses. Because of the pandemic, I've been stuck at home. My screen time was up 900%. So now I've got these on just for. I should have taken them off before this, but
That's
whatever.
not a real percent, and first of all, you you look great in them. They fit you really like, I forgot you had them on until just now. Yeah, you look great in them.
Thanks. It actually has helped. I don't know, and I've done some research on it. I see contradicting information on it, but even if it's just a placebo effect, it's been making me feel better.
Well, honestly, this pair of glasses I got a year and a half ago. I got a new pair, and this was the first time ever that I had gotten glasses where they had the ability to just put into my prescription to put the blue light filter in, and it was a very small upcharge compared to the cost of the glasses. So I just said, "Do it if I'm going to spend $600-700 on a pair of glasses for an extra $50." Yeah, throw the blue light filter in there. It's fantastic. I don't ever end up. I really never end up with the headache issue from the screen. Although that I feel like mostly lately the headache kind of issue I'm getting, it's I don't think it's from the screen itself. I think it's just from the focus that you
Yeah,
have to have and the lights that you and I have on because you
yeah,
were
that too.
the average person on a webcam doesn't have the lighting setup that we have. We have these massive lights just blasting in our face all day, and I'm like focused and I'm here and I
Mhm.
want you to know that I'm listening and that I'm not also on Facebook or whatever at the same time. And just after 6-7 hours of that, my brain is just like, "Ah."
Oh, I know.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, anyway, I think, I don't know if we solved anything here. I don't know if we solve anything ever, but
yeah,
I've seen a few of you folks. I see you in the comments starting to pay attention. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Keep giving us your feedback and let us know if you have topics you'd like us to cover
yeah,
moving
yeah. We
forward.
appreciate it. Yeah. So, and we'd love to know what you think about this topic as well. If you have any thoughts based on things that we said or things that you wish we talked about, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. And you and I have something. We have a new project that we're working on, but we don't have enough details to talk about it quite yet. So maybe by next week, you and I will actually have some details to float out there into YouTube land and accept generous advice, although
Yes,
not feedback in response.
that's right. All right. Without any further ado, on
On to the next project.